Eating the mic.
Yeah.
What was? So we're not actually rolling at the moment. Well, like we're
we're
rolling now,
rolling,
but we're off the record.
Yeah, exactly.
One thing I did want to talk about was how we're competitive for some things and not others. Like I find naturally we're both competitive people.
Yeah.
But like when I go play hockey with the boys, I don't care if I do well or not. You know what I mean? Like I don't know why. There's just something about like I've accepted that I'm not going to be the best at this right away. And so I just have fun with it, but I feel like I don't need to, like, there's just something I don't know how to explain it. It's just like, why don't I feel the need to be competitive in a sport I'm trash at?
I think it's because you realize you're inevitably going to lose.
Yeah,
like
maybe
you don't want to be
why.
competitive in things that like you really don't have a shot in. So you don't want to waste the effort of like worrying about how good the other people are doing, because at the end of the day, you're probably going to lose. Like that's why the best competitions are like a tight race. You have like two of the best teams. People love that when it's like two of the best fighters, two of the best teams, two of the best players head to head, and it's like a close race. But yeah, if you're just out of the running
right off the bat,
you don't want to mentally like put yourself into that competition just to like inevitably disappoint yourself, right?
Yeah, like why expend the energy on worrying about winning when you just know right away you're not going to win?
Yeah, like I think in business they say that a lot of like you want to try to escape the competition, right? Like you don't want to be, you want to look for the market areas that don't have a lot of competition.
Yeah, kind of start new.
In
a small area.
In some sense, that's like backing out of being the competitor. You know what I mean? Like some like people that are deeply competitive, I feel like they'd be like, no, I want to play in the market where there's the most people. So
that's
like
actually an interesting thing. That's an interesting thing we should actually talk about on the pod, because.
Well, I think we can. I mean, we pretty much started.
You're gonna chop that in.
Yeah. We'll make things work.
You'll chop and sew with the other stuff.
And yeah, maybe I should do an intro actually. So, we're back here in the studio and back by massively popular demand here with Brad Beermann.
Hey, thanks for having me. Ollie, appreciate it. Appreciate the fans. Bring me on second time.
It's pretty insane, the demand, but good to have you back for sure. And yeah, I mean, we already started talking about competition, and we'll just keep going from there, because I think competition is an interesting topic, and I think you and I both are definitely competitive, especially in like sports and things like that. Yeah, you definitely seem to really enjoy competition from what I see. Would you agree on that? Like, why do you think you like competition?
Yeah, I mean, I can't shy away from a little competition. It definitely excites me a bit. I like winning, you know. I don't win all the time, but I like winning, and when you win, it feels good. But
yeah,
something about just putting it out there and competing against your peers feels good, you know.
Yeah, like I do have like a desire to get in the mix too whenever there's some sort of game going on.
Yeah,
like if there's like a ping pong match and like I don't know, one guy's doing pretty well, and like you might even be getting hyped up, like, oh damn, like this guy's good.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, I want to try it out. Let's see how I can fare against that. And yeah, don't like sitting on the sidelines.
No, and I've seen you play ping pong at a high level as well.
Yeah,
and it's just it's like a look that you can't really describe that you get when you have like a nice slam.
Yeah.
You know, you send a statement to the other team like, we're not going to lose today, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's just something about it, right?
Yeah, I remember playing you in ping pong. Well, I've played you in ping pong a number of times.
Yeah,
but there was one time in particular where I actually had like a weird reflection about how competitive I was, where I was like, what the hell is wrong with me? Because I was playing against you, and I gotta say this right off the start. You beat me sometimes. I beat you.
Yeah, pretty even.
But there was this particular game where I think I was up like, I don't know, 9-0 or something. And you might remember this too once I bring it up, but what it was is it was like 9-0, and then I hit the ball over to you, and then like you got a point, and I was like, fuck.
Oh
like,
yeah.
And then you were like, what? You're still winning like pretty badly, and I like actually had to like wake up for a second. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. But I just
9-1.
I just hated I hated to get scored on. It didn't even matter like the game. I just didn't want to lose any part of the game. You know?
Yeah. Was that at my place?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty that does ring a bell. I think I ended up winning that one.
Yeah, right.
11 to 9 finish.
11 to 9.
Couple unanswered Genos.
Yeah, that'd be devastating. But yeah, I know there's something about that, and I've seen you like this, and I've been the same way in other sports too, like soccer and futsal, where like it isn't just enough to win. You don't want to lose at all in any area. You don't want to get the ball stolen from you. You don't want to get scored on. I've seen you make some really throw your body on the line and put a lot at risk just to stop some individuals from scoring.
Yeah, it's almost that's a good. It's nice that you bring that up. I feel like we have been playing soccer together for a while on top of other sports, but I find it's the competition within the competition sometimes.
Yeah.
You go ahead and as a team you win a game, and we've had some pretty good wins, but then you find you're already winning the game. It's like you're trying to also compete in other places. Like,
Yeah.
I got to be the best defender. I have to get a couple steals, lay the body. There's a lot of things that you really got to try and get ahead on. And yeah, we probably took that a little too seriously when we were younger.
Some people might call it bad sportsmanship, but yeah, it's just a competitive instinct. But yeah, I don't know. It goes both ways though. Like you win some, you lose some.
Where do you think that stems from? Like just being competitive like that, overly competitive?
Yeah, well, I think competition in general just stems from people's understanding that it actually is beneficial to be at the top of certain games.
Yeah.
Like if you're in the like entrepreneurial business, or let's say you're just like an NHL player, to be at the top of the game actually will give you more rewards. Like if you're a more prominent NHL player, NBA player, you're gonna get more sponsorships. More people are gonna, I don't know, buy your stuff and buy your jerseys and whatnot. And then
more
like in any field really, like even in school, like there's a reason for trying to get better grades, because in society there's limited spots, right? Like there's a limited spot for a job, there's a limited spot to get into certain university programs. So it actually does pay off to try to win in certain categories. And I think that's why people are competitive, because like whether they're like consciously thinking of it, they have an understanding that if I'm losing, there actually will be less benefits in my life, and the more that I'm winning in certain areas, the more benefits will come.
Yeah. So I feel like it's kind of separating yourself from the pack a little bit. If you're winning, I guess you're separating yourself, but just being competitive. Like, what if you're competitive and you still lose?
Well, that's just sad.
That's just sad.
That's the thing about like competition. Like, I feel like if you are quite competitive, you want to be cautious with it, or like be careful with what you're being competitive with.
Yeah. So do you think there's a difference between being like obsessive about winning and just being competitive, or are they synonymous?
I mean, there's probably a spectrum of how competitive like each person is. Like not everybody's quite as competitive. Like some people are obsessive about it. Like you hear stories about Michael Jordan just wanting to win everything. It didn't matter if it's basketball or you're playing cards, golf, baseball. Like he just wanted to win super, super badly.
Yeah.
And in some ways, like, I don't know if competitiveness has a conflict with your internal peace and happiness. You know what I mean? Like you always want more.
Yeah. So does that mean you're always going to want to win and you're never going to be content with just like, I don't know. When are you going to be competitive for life, or is there going to get to a point or an age where your back is getting tight and you're like, I can't compete like I used to, I got to let it go a bit?
Yeah. Well, I feel like the key thing is like trying to be more competitive against yourself, like not comparing so much to other people. Like just trying to beat your previous things that you've done.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of brought up a good point there about just like competing against yourself. I think that's what's kind of interesting about running, especially. You know, we did that race, the BC Backwoods, a couple months ago. And I'm not a runner, I'll just say that right off the bat, but second year doing the race, second ever race. And last year was fine, but this year was better and didn't come in first. But the fact that I was able to improve on my score from last year, or my time from last year, definitely felt good. Like I was competitive against myself, even though I didn't really stand a chance against like some of the other athletes running.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is something to be said about like just competing with yourself internally and then just competing against other people. I guess it's just two different types of competition.
Yeah. And I was just thinking, I think like another thing that motivates people to be competitive is we all, to some degree or another, kind of have like a desire to be important, like to feel like unique or special in some sort of way. And that like people want to like stand out or stick their head out, and I think that's another drive. Like do you feel that, or do you see that in any areas? Because like I could see that for sure on like social media, even like people will compete for getting the most followers. Like you want to have something a little bit more standout.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think that goes back to separating yourself from the pack a little bit. Like you were saying with like the best athletes in a league or something like that. How like a top scorer in the league might get a little more media attention or sponsorships or things like that for being better than their peers.
Yeah.
So I feel like the same can be said for social media as well. If followers are something you value a lot and you're getting more of them, people are going to take note of that. The people who value followers are going to be like, oh, that guy or girl has a lot. So I definitely see that being like a factor, just having more than someone else. But then at the same time, it's like if you're someone who doesn't care about followers, then this person with a lot just doesn't really, like, it doesn't mean much to you. Like I could be the best soccer player, but if you are like a diehard lacrosse guy, you're probably not going to really bat too much of an eye on my impressive soccer skills, you know?
Yeah. And I feel like that's why like you want to be cautious of which game you start to get competitive with, because let's say you're surrounded by people that are playing that game of like how many followers I can get, and you are like subtly getting influenced by that, but it's a game that maybe has a dead end, or it's not going to be a game that is super rewarding at the end of the day, an empty pursuit, or it's not a pursuit that is super meaningful to you. Like it's not like it's not something that you're super interested in, you know what I mean? But you get kind of pulled into that game because you want to compete in the games that people around you are competing in. And next thing you know, you're doing things that might not be optimal for you.
Yeah, I feel like first and foremost, you have to want to compete in that space.
Yeah.
Because if you just, well, I feel like there might be some people who just want to go into any space and try and win, you know, like,
yeah,
I definitely thought I could be good at hockey if I just got skates and a stick. I'm like, yeah, I'll go out there. Yeah. And then you go and play against people who have actually played hockey for all their lives, and it's like a very humbling experience. And I'm like, yeah, I was very ignorant of me to just think I could be good if I got skates and a stick.
Yeah. But even like, do you ever think like, oh, I want to just play hockey for a decent amount of time so I can get to a certain level and then actually compete with these guys? And that's like a longer journey that people often opt out of, but I feel like the deepest like competitors will try to like enter in that arena where like currently they're not good, but they still want to eventually compete.
Yeah.
Like I wonder if Michael Jordan somewhat did that when he went to go play baseball.
Yeah, yeah.
Like he's like, I'm gonna show you that I can play with you guys. Maybe his first day of baseball, he just gets dominated. Like he's not great, but at the same time, natural athlete, so he might have done all right. But like, yeah, you just wanna do whatever it takes to eventually compete.
Yeah, well, I was actually going to ask you this because, like, part of me would want to train hard enough that I could play hockey at that level, just for instance.
Yeah.
But then part of me is like, if I'm being realistic, the people I'm trying to play with have been playing for their whole lives, and
Yeah.
I'm just picking it up now.
Yeah.
At this age. Is it even possible to reach that level of competition, or is it okay that I don't feel super competitive playing it because I've just kind of accepted that I'll never be that good?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like you got to pick and choose where you're going to be competitive in, but like, do you ever feel like you'd be curious to see if you ever could get to that level? Like now you can't really compete with them at a high level, but at some point you could eventually get there, because like you don't like sitting on the sideline. Like you prefer when you guys are playing hockey that you're actually in the mix of the competition.
Yeah.
So you're competitive enough to want to actually get to a point where you're somewhat match them in skill level.
Yeah, I mean,
everybody only has so much time, but
it would be nice. Would I ever get to a point where I get the equipment, the shoulder pads, the bucket, all that stuff, and actually join a league? Hard to say. I feel like, well, with that sport in particular, there's more barriers for entry. Like equipment's a lot more expensive than like soccer and stuff like that. Like,
yeah,
it's a bigger investment, but for me, I don't mind just playing on the ODR, and I don't get too sweaty. It's just kind of feels recreational because I've just accepted the fact that I'm not gonna score a bunch of. Would I like to score a bunch of goals? Sure, but
yeah,
I'll set up a couple Genos and feel good about it at the end of the day. It's like, I'm not the best, got a little exercise, but yeah, it's kind of weird. Like this, for anyone who doesn't know, we played a lot of soccer growing up. Ollie and I, same team, and I feel like because we've invested so much time into it,
mm-hmm.
that I care more about being solid at the sport. Like if I lose in it, I'm a little more disappointed because I spent so much time working on it that
mm-hmm.
it's like, you've literally trained all your life for this and you're still losing, But in hockey, it wasn't like not a huge investment. So I'm like, if I lose, it's because I didn't really work that hard.
Yeah, if you're going to put in so much time, you should have something to show for it.
Yeah. Even in footy sevens, like I see you sweat a little bit and I'm like, yeah, this guy's not willing to. It's beer league soccer, but it's like you're not trying to lose, Been working on it for so long.
I think one of the most fun things too is like going into a competition as a team, and the members on your team are pretty like high level as well, like in the arena that you're in. Like we got some competent players on the team, like you're all going to war together in a sense. Like,
yeah,
maybe one of the deepest things in human nature is like that going to battle with the squad.
Yeah, the camaraderie.
Like back in the day, it used to be like everybody would get together and like go out on a hunt, or maybe go to like fight the neighboring tribe.
Yeah.
But now we have sports, which is like essentially that. Like people get super tribal over that, where they'll go nuts for like
going to war against
other fans.
Team,
like they'll actually like go insane. You run into like an opposing fan in the hallway, and like some people like they actually hate this guy. And I think
you don't
even
know them. No. You just see what the jersey they're wearing, and you're like, yeah, screw that guy.
Yeah, but I think that like sports triggers something like super innate in people, where like that's what we've done for a lot of evolution is you like you squad up and then you go to battle against somebody else. There's something about like having people on your team that are also competitive that's I find really fun.
I even found that in like Chell 14.
Yeah.
It even back then, it's like you go into like an EASHL game with the boys.
Yeah.
And you go in there, you're against like a group of 4 other people, and you really want to win, but it feels amplified as a team because there's 4 other people playing alongside you that also want to win.
Yeah.
So it feels like it means a little more to compete. And I was going to ask you this about competing in team sports versus competing in like individual sports. Which one you think, like if it was you doing a team sport or an individual sport, which one would you feel more competitive in? Example, like solos tennis or golf or something like that.
I think solos.
Really?
Yeah, just because at the end of the day, it's like, what's the reason we lost? And there's nobody else to blame other than you. So it's like, we lost and I lost specifically.
Yeah, it's
versus
all
as a
you.
team, it's like, that was fucking this guy. Wasn't me.
You're the type of guy who's like, well, I got 3 goals. What'd you guys do?
Yeah.
You know, it's like an 8-3 loss.
Yeah, we lose 8-3, but I'm like, good game.
Got three Genos.
Yeah.
For me, I feel like I'm more competitive in a team space. You made a good point. Like, I'm the reason why we lost if you play a solo sport.
Yeah.
Because there's no one else to blame. It's literally just you. But in a team space, I feel like you and your teammates all share the same goal of winning. And I'm trying to play my best, not just for me, but it's like to give the team everything. And I think that motivates me to like compete a little harder because like your teammates also want to win, and if you can put yourself in a position to win the game, it's like you'll go that step.
Like you don't want to let other people down too, because like it's not just your win that's at stake here. Like it's everybody else is kind of dependent on how hard you're trying or how skilled you are.
Yeah.
But there's something about the one-on-one that I find like really, really interesting. That's why I like I've gotten into the UFC a lot more. It's just something like so much more intensity when it's like head to head. And I feel like other sports try to make this happen because there is something people really like about the 1-versus-1. Like you'll have like Ronaldo versus Messi.
Oh yeah.
Or like when specific basketball teams are playing or NHL teams, like in hockey, it'd be like Washington Captain versus Pittsburgh, and they'd always advertise it as Crosby versus Ovechkin. There's something people like about the 1 versus the 1.
It's actually a good point.
It's just like it's like the most intense like gladiator thing. Like you put your best man forward, and then the other guy puts his best guy. Yeah, and it's like let's go head to head, and that
is kind of neat when you think about it like that. It's like your your best guy on each team. It's like going to battle, and there is something exciting about that. It just adds another narrative to the event you're watching. It's like, the Penguins beat the Caps, but Crosby dominated Ovi for the whole game, and like here's why, and that's kind of interesting to see.
I feel like people are drawn towards like trying to search for the GOAT. Like people are always obsessed with like the GOAT. They're like, who's the best though? It's not about like, oh yeah, that whole team's pretty good. It's like, but which one's the best?
Yeah. And they're always looking for it. I feel like we use GOAT a lot these days too.
Yeah.
And there are a few out there for sure, but that's a pretty big term, or like it's a pretty big title to carry. The greatest of all time, you know?
Yeah.
And
but people are always arguing about that. They're like, who's the GOAT? Who's the GOAT? Yeah, there's something that like we seem to really like about wanting to know who's the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
and it's weird. It's weird how that works. Or why it's weird that we're looking for that all the time. Because I bet if you talk to the GOATs, the actual guys, the Michael Jordans, the Tom Bradys, the Wayne Gretzkys, they're probably not the first. Like they're probably not telling you that they're the GOAT. You know, they might think it, but they'll never be they'll never be, yeah, I'm the best there ever was. You know, it's like, or I'm the best there ever is.
Yeah.
It's kind of just a title that's been like put on them, and then they're like, yeah, well, they're saying this, I'm just gonna have to embrace it, I guess. Which is kind of neat, because I wonder if it's just an incredible ability to be excellent at their sport, or if they're just insanely competitive and competing at such a high, like they eventually got there by competing hard every single day, or if they're just born with that gift of being fantastic in their field.
Yeah, I think there's something about mentioning like you yourself, that you are the GOAT, that like rubs some people the wrong way.
Yeah.
So like I think that's why some people will avoid it, but like you have seen people do it, and it is, depending on who it is. Like I think Muhammad Ali used to say that, like, I'm the best. Like, and some of the boxers especially, they'd be quite cocky about it.
I actually love when they do that, man. I think it's good to be a little cocky, but it's like I couldn't do it myself, but I respect it when they're like, yeah, no one will ever beat me.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're just putting it all on the line.
Yeah.
I think that's what's
Big ego
interesting
thing
about it, is like you're going all in. You're claiming these great things, and then every time people watch you, they want to see if you can back it up.
Yeah.
So
it just adds a lot of unnecessary pressure, probably.
Yeah.
To you're the self-proclaimed GOAT.
Yeah.
I feel like, yeah, you wouldn't really. You probably don't see that too much today. Like Steph Curry, they say he's the best shooter of all time, and he's got great numbers to back it up.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's ever going to tell you that he's the best shooter of all time. He's going to point to other guys like Reggie Miller or something like that, Ray Allen, guys who have also were shooting the 3-ball really well before him, and they're like, yeah, Steph will be like, yeah, those are my heroes growing up. Like, those are the guys I look up to. But then even those guys are like, yeah, he's the GOAT. But Curry will never tell you himself. And I wonder if that's like he's being humble, or
I think a lot of those like guys that are at the top high level, they're like heavily self-critical too.
Yeah.
Where like they're always super hard on themselves, so they can always pinpoint some sort of weakness. So they might genuinely be like, no, I'm not the best. Like I could get a little better here. Whereas from like outside perspectives, people be like, your shooting percentage is amazing, this, that, and the other. But like Steph might be thinking, no, I could have done a little better. And yeah, I think people like the people that get to the highest level are all often like very, very self-critical and cautious of thinking that they're the best, because as soon as you get there, or as soon as you start thinking that, you're going to be likely to not like work as hard, and other people are going to climb past you. But if you're like consistently like, no, I could get better, odds are you're going to get better, because that's your mentality is, I have stuff to improve.
Yeah. I guess when you say you're the best ever, it means that there's not, like, you really don't need to improve, because there's no one who can do it better than you. But by not giving yourself that title, saying, hey, I could work on this, I can do this and improve here and here, then it's like a journey that's just going on indefinitely, and you're just always perfecting your craft, instead of just saying, I'm the best and there's nothing more I need to do, you know?
Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of these guys feel pressure of like the new up and coming guys. Like they're kind of chasing them down. Like let's say Steph's like at the top of the mountain. He probably feels a little bit of pressure from these new guys joining the league.
Yeah.
And that alone might encourage him to like keep going hard, because he is competitive and he knows people they're watching him, trying to like look for his flaws and see how they can be better than him. Yeah, you see that in the UFC too. Like there's the one guy who has the belt, and then everybody else is like watching his tape, looking for his weaknesses. And I feel like to know that there's so many people looking at you and wanting to eventually beat you, that would definitely be motivating. Like there's people like critiquing you, and there's people hoping to one day beat you, and just knowing all these people are essentially coming to get you, that would motivate me at least. Like
I feel like if you're the best at what you do, you're always under the microscope a little bit, like what you were saying. other teams are looking at film, or other guys are just like analyzing your game to try and use it for themselves or to try and find holes in your own game. Before our time, but I remember watching the Rocket Richard movie.
Yeah.
You know that one?
I haven't seen it.
I think it was just called The Rocket. Anyway,
Yeah.
I don't even remember if it was good or not, but there was one moment where obviously he's nasty and he
Yeah.
gets a lot of goals. And I mean, no brainer, the Rocket Award,
Yeah,
right? But there was a moment where they were playing some team. I think it was the Leafs or something, or the Bruins, but the coach on the other team is like, "Yo, take this guy out."
Yeah.
And just because he was the best guy, he was the
Right.
best guy on the team, and they're like, "We know you're the best. We're gonna like kill you on the ice, basically."
Yeah.
And guys would just beat him up like old school hockey, just
Yeah.
like take off the gloves, and he wants no part in it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I guess point I'm trying to make is when you're clearly above and beyond, it's either you got to figure out how he gets an edge or just kind of take him down,
Yeah.
which is kind of interesting.
Stuff like that. When I hear things like that like excites me, kind of like
Yeah.
to know that people have your number and like they're like in some ways out to get you. I don't know if you feel that at all, where like, let's say we were playing another soccer team and like people were like, I want to beat this guy or whatever. I don't like, even not just soccer, just in general. Like there's something that's kind of actually like appealing to me about having other people be like, oh, I want to beat you at this, or like it definitely motivates me to try even harder.
Oh yeah.
Especially like if you were in that position like Rockets where you're winning and then you know that all these people want you to lose and they're like, we're going to beat you. In my mind, it'd be like, I'm going to try to win even harder now because I know you guys all want me to lose.
Yeah.
So that would definitely motivate me, that extra mile
Keep
of like,
competing. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that would do the same for me too. Especially like over the pandemic. I mean, you've been involved as well. We've been going bowling more because it was one of the few things that have been opened throughout the pandemic. So we'd go bowling, and no one was really good at bowling at the start, right? Like we went and everyone was fresh first time, and over the pandemic we just kept on going bowling more and more frequently, so that everyone started at zero, but then people would get better in different like levels. Like some guys would have weeks where they're like way better than everyone else, and it's kind of fun to be at the top and to just keep competing. And then when you even have a bad week and you're like, oh geez, I took an L here, but it just kind of inspires you to chase. And when you're way ahead, you're like, oh, I don't want to lose now because, then the boys are going to catch me and I'm going to look silly for being bad now,
Yeah. Do you ever feel like bad about winning sometimes?
No.
No?
Never, bro.
Sometimes I feel like...
well, how do you mean? Like, why would you feel bad, maybe?
If it's... if you notice that other people are super competitive about something, and you can like tell that they're disappointed if you're beating them, but it's not a competition that you care about that much. Like, let's say, you know what I mean, though?
Yeah, like you're just...
Let's say somebody deeply cares about bowling, and you come, and you just beat them, and they're, like, pissed at you, and it's like, fuck, like, I'm going to try to win just because it's the name of the game, but, like, I can see you're getting upset, and I don't want to, like, have, like, a battle with you. This isn't the sport that I care about. But like
it's like your fifth favorite sport, and you beat the lifer, the guy and then the guy's like
I don't want to get you upset. You start purposely bowling in the gutter, and it's just like
that would suck.
But have you had that like where people are competitive with you about things and you're like, I don't want any part in this, like just lay off me. Like, I can tell you're getting competitive with this, but it's like, I don't want any part in this because some aspects of the competition is like, you want to win, so that means you're kind of looking at me as if I'm the enemy. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, like I don't want I'm not trying to play this game. Let's just you do your thing. I'll fucking bowl too, and we'll see what happens. But
Yeah, that's a very interesting situation because I mean there are some guys who are just natural athletes. It's like bowling can be your 10th favorite sport and you still bowl a 300, maybe a 250, and you're just like, yeah, sorry boys, you beat the guy who's been training for 15 years.
yeah,
He scrapes together a 130 game, and you're just, yeah, that would be devastating. I feel like if you're the guy who trained for 15 years and still got smoked, you'd probably feel a little bad, but you could probably just accept that he's just a natural athlete. You know, some people are just built like that, and I don't know why. But like, as the guy who's if I were the guy who's bowling a 300 and beat the guy who's been training for a while, I would probably feel bad because it's just not fair. Because in theory, you train for something, you get better at it.
yeah.
And it doesn't really make a lot of sense that you can go into something with little training and be just excellent at it. You just don't see it that often.
Right. And I think even if they haven't been playing for 15 years, like let's say you're both fresh, but you're just like, I just want to, like, it's just different mentalities that you enter the game with. Like one person's like, oh, you think you're going to beat me? And then the other person's just like, I'm just here to play. Like, just let's see what happens. I'll just have fun or whatever.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, that two different mentalities can be difficult sometimes, where the other person's like, I'm going to beat you. And you're just like, whoa, like it doesn't have to be like this, bro. It's just like you can just kind of run your own race in some ways.
Yeah, it's kind of it's kind of weird. Like how you preface the game really sets the tone for it. And sometimes it's not even you. Like before a game starts, no matter what the sport, there might be a little hearsay in the locker room or just like with the boys while you're like lacing up, and they'll say something like, oh yeah, this guy's nasty, or yeah, this guy rarely loses, or this guy always hits over 200, and then you just put like, not only do you put pressure on the person who's known for all these great things, but you also take, like, by saying these things, you also take pressure off yourself to, like, if you're the one saying these things,
right?
It's like, oh, well, he always bowls a 200, so I can't feel too upset. But then when you win against the guy who always bowls a 200, you're like, I'm the best.
Yeah,
you know, like you get fired up.
I do love to hear that stuff. Like even you saying it now, like if you're talking,
I can see you're giddy now.
Well, like when you say like, yo, I heard this guy's really good. Like let's say we're playing soccer and like it's like, yo, I heard the guy we're playing next weekend's like, he's pretty nice. It's like, oh, well, let's see about that. You know what I mean?
I like the challenge.
When you hear stuff like that is coming up, it's like, man, we'll see. And people, yeah, that's why competition is fun, because it does bring the best out of people in a lot of ways, because I think naturally people can tend to do the minimum amount of effort required.
Yeah.
So competition,
it's like
drives
honest.
people. Yeah, because like, the other guy does a little bit more effort, and then you're like, okay, in order for me to stay in the game, I gotta match that, and I want to win, so I'll go a little bit further. And then he's like, okay, like I see what you're doing, let's go. I'll try to match that and beat that, and then next thing you know, like it pushes people really hard, and that's why they try to stimulate like competition, even in the workplace, like managers, like between employees, which some of that stuff I find like kind of, I don't know, it's not always the best. It makes things like more stressful sometimes. But
when they put like crazy expectations on you or something like that.
Or just like trying to like kind of put employees against each other, where it's like who's like for sales, for example, it's like who's had the best month this year. And then it works from a manager's perspective probably, because like now you have two guys that maybe they're both naturally competitive, and because you are making it a competition and keeping track of who had the most sales that month, both these guys probably are trying a little harder now, so you make more profits. But for those individuals, how much they enjoy their work might actually go down a little bit, or how stressed out they are might actually increase a little bit, because now they're like, oh shit, like fucking Steve's doing better than me this month, this is a bad look or whatever.
Yeah.
Versus if it's just like, hey, both you guys just go make some money and
keep it up, guys. Keep it up.
it's a more like encouraging environment. But I get why they do it, because like you need to have some sort of standards, and for people to like have something to chase. But having to constantly chase somebody else's
tiring
target, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it especially at work too. I mean, I feel like that's a popular tactic for managers. You brought that up.
Sneaky managers.
Yeah, sneaky managers. Like
sly dogs.
At my work too. It's we have weekly meetings, and I'm sure a lot of teams do that at work. But at our meetings, they talk about like the status of projects we're working on and stuff like that. But they'll always say like, "Hey, this person's been killing it. Like, would love to see you." Not, they don't say like, "I'd love to see you guys be as good as them," but they'll say something like, "This person has been really like a great example and working really hard, putting in the extra hours." And you're like, "Yeah, let's go. That's good." Has
that ever been you and you don't like it? Because like in some way, let's say there's like 5 employees, and then the manager's like, Brad's been doing really, really well this quarter, and like he's announcing it to the other 5 employees of like, look what Brad's doing. He's been doing this, that, and the other. And you know the other 4 guys are pretty competitive.
Yeah.
And in some way, they're looking at you as the guy that is making them feel bad, because the manager's like,
they gotta catch
you guys
up
should be doing what Brad's doing. Look at him. Like, and in some ways, you don't want to be that person, because now like you look at your employees and they got a little like aggressive look in their eye, and they're like, okay, Brad, you think you're fucking doing this better? It's like, well, like I'm just doing my thing, and now the manager's trying to put people against each other a little bit.
Yeah, like for me, it wouldn't bother me that much. Because I'm not the one who's saying it, right? Like that's my manager who's, I'm doing my work and it's getting done at a high level, so I'll take the win there. But
would you feel
with my teammates, for instance, the relationship's pretty good, where I kind of reach out to them. We're all boys, like we're in a fantasy basketball league.
Yeah.
And it does, like, it's not really super competitive. Like our manager might say something about one of us, but no one's like, "Oh fuck, gotta work hard, boys."
Right.
It's not super sweaty like that, but yeah, I mean,
because in some ways it could be like your manager's kind of planting a target on your back.
Yeah.
Of like,
yeah, he's got to keep it up, kind of thing.
That or even just like for the other 4. He's implying that he would like them to be doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And now they're like, oh, if Brad wasn't here, we'd be doing fine. Or it's just like it creates levels, and I think
it just
that's the negative side of competition that can sometimes happen, is that like people they don't feel as great about what they're doing if there's somebody else there that's getting the praise.
Yeah, I find just when it comes to competition in any sense, like whether it's sports or work or something like that, just more dimensions add to it. Like at work, you got to get your work done, and you'll get it done by the due date or just on your own time, whatever. But then when the manager would include something like, oh, this person's really excelled these last couple weeks, take notes, guys. Like that just adds fuel to the flame, so to speak.
Yeah.
And makes me want to compete more personally. Like I feel like we can only really talk about soccer because we only played that. Like that was the sport we really played together on the most. But
yeah.
The years where you had more goals than I did, I was like, yeah, we're winning games, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to get more goals than you. You know, it's like it's nice to win games, but it's also nice to win the game within the game, which is get some goals. And you know, he didn't always pass the ball, but you know, we ended up winning games.
Yeah, a little bit of that from both. But,
a little bit of that from both.
Yeah, no, people get hungry for it, and that's the thing. Maybe one of the more negative aspects of competition that like you want to try to avoid is trying to be happy. Like you still want to be happy for other people's achievements, but for some of the most competitive people, I think there might be a tendency to lose that a little bit, especially if it's an achievement in something that they care about and they're competitive in.
Yeah.
Where you're not necessarily like full of joy when somebody else is doing the thing that you wish you were doing.
Do you find like the most competitive people you know are competitive all the time, or can they turn it on or turn it off whenever? What I mean by that is I find I can just flip the switch.
Yeah.
And when I want to be competitive, I can do it. And then if I'm not really trying to sweat that much, I'll just kind of turn it off. Or
I feel that too. Like I don't find I'm always competitive, and there's sometimes where I intentionally just don't want to be competitive because it's more like relaxing.
Yeah.
Like, it's like you don't have to be trying so hard.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
It is kind of annoying sometimes though when you're in a competitive mode, but then the people alongside you on your team or just you're playing against them don't reciprocate that level of competitiveness.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you want to have a good competition, and to have that you need everyone competing. But you know, I find sometimes there's certain sports or there's certain moments or games or whatever where some people are like, I'll flip the switch off, and you're like, no, turn it on, we gotta win. Or they'll use it as like well, I wasn't really trying, and that's why I didn't win or I lost.
Yeah, you'll get that a lot for sure.
Yeah.
Where people like could claim they weren't even like competing. They're like, yeah, I didn't really care about that anyway. So
yeah, exactly. Like it's just like an easy thing to say if you did win. It's like, I wasn't trying. You know?
Yeah, and it's such a common one that like half the time you hear it, it's not even that true. Like it's like, that's like the most basic excuse in the book. Like,
it's
yeah, whatever. I didn't really care that much about that anyway, so that's why I didn't really try.
Yeah,
but it's like, okay.
And I feel like when I was younger, maybe I used that one every now and again. Like if I lost a game that I really wanted to win, I'd be like, I wasn't trying.
Yeah.
I'd beat you, but I didn't want to this time. But you know, as I feel like as we've gotten older, it's become easier to accept, like, yeah, this guy's just way better than I am, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's like I worked hard and I didn't win, and that's all there is to say about that.
Yeah, I think that's it. Like you can work as hard as you possibly can, but like just stay in your own lane, and that should be it. And if somebody's still beating you, you don't really want to beat yourself up about that, because if you honestly are doing everything you can and still losing, it is what it is.
Yeah.
If you notice you're getting upset about somebody else beating you, it kind of exposes something in yourself a little bit of like, maybe that's an area you're kind of insecure about. I always like that message of like, oh, if I feel like bad about other people's success, is that all that really is doing is exposing my insecurity.
Yeah.
So, and that's something I can work on. You can't change what other people do. Like that's why like jealousy is one of the worst things, is because you can be jealous of what somebody else is doing, but your jealousy just hurts you and does nothing to the person that you're jealous about.
Yeah.
So
I was going to tie it around to that too, actually, because I feel like growing up I was envious of other people's skills in other sports or just different play styles or something like that. But then as I've gotten older, I'm competing less with other people, and kind of like the competition starts with myself, I guess, like just trying to be better than yesterday. And then if I can beat other people, I'm down. But
Yeah.
you know, but start with myself, and if I can beat other people at the same time, I'm in. But I was thinking about, like, reflecting on the race before we started this, the BC Backwoods.
Yeah.
And as you know, like, I'm not a runner, but you know, tried to train. Money went to a good cause, and like well run event, second year there. So I was pretty serious about, like, at least running it to completion, 10K.
Yeah.
And I guess like a little story here. So my Runkeeper app didn't work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my Runkeeper app didn't work, and I used that to track all the runs.
Yeah.
And training and stuff. I had that, and it was good for music, but most importantly, it was good to see, like, your kilometers, like how many I've left and stuff.
Yeah.
Wasn't working. So I was like, all right, I'm screwed here. What am I going to do? I see Reed right in front of me. Shout out Reed, friend of the pod.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'll just shadow him for the first 5K, see what happens. And managed to keep pace with him for 5K. And then obviously he's a runner, so he was able to pull ahead in the last 5.
Yeah.
But what made me realize that it's just okay to be better, like, just year over year better, was like, I didn't get the first that I was, you know, saying I was going to get first was unrealistic, but I was reflecting on it after the race. And it's like, well, I didn't win, but I did like 3-4 minutes better than last year. So I counted that as a win, even though it wasn't like a podium level win, you know? So even though I didn't win the race, and I was actually quite tired in the second half there. Shout out Shane for a second. I tried to follow him. He passed me pretty good in the second half there, but you know, tried to chase him down like a dog. I couldn't, but
yeah, he's quick.
That guy. Yeah, he's a runner and a track star, but it's didn't get the podium, but just thinking about how I've come, like, so far over 2 years, was still like a pretty big achievement, and I felt like a good level of competition, you know?
Yeah, I think that's the ideal, is keep comparing against yourself and getting competitive in that sense. Yeah. But it is hard to not compete against other people, because, like we're saying, like, the reality is, like, in society, people are rewarded at the top of certain categories. Like, competition does make people uncomfortable, right? Because it means that somebody lost and somebody won. And most competitions, there's piles and piles of people that didn't win. Like, for everybody in the NBA or NHL, there's so many people that didn't make it. For everybody that wins a gold medal at the Olympics, there's tons of people that didn't win, didn't even make the Olympics. And that makes people sad sometimes, because it's like we want everybody to win. And in schools, even these days, like, the participation medals becoming more prominent, and even just doing a no winners thing is becoming more prominent, of like, we're playing to have fun. Like, there's no win, lose, draw, whatever. We're not even going to keep score. What do you think about that? Like, that being more
it's like normal now.
Yeah.
There's
no winners.
I really like like there being winners. You know, I feel like it's important, because just trying to do something at a high level, I think, is important. And if there's no incentive to work harder than someone else, I feel like you might not get the best out of someone. Like, if we're all gonna get the same participation medal, for instance, I might not work as hard as I could, because I'm like, well, win or lose, like, we still get this medal. So I still think it's good to reward excellence. And I was just thinking about this as we've been talking. I really like in soccer how you shake hands at the end of the game.
Yeah.
I think that's like really important closure. Uh,
Yeah.
like for the games we win, it doesn't feel as important, but for the games we lose, it's like you're a good sport, you've accepted it, and you're like ready to move on. Like in basketball, they don't always shake hands after a game. Like some well, at least it doesn't feel like it's a requirement. Like if they're friends, they'll say what's up at the end of the game. But like in soccer, at least back in the day, like you would line up and shake hands. Or now it seems like at like international level, it's a little more informal. You just kind of walk to everyone. But it felt like it was an important step. Like you may not have been the best team, but you competed well, and like the winners have acknowledged this. It's like you're shaking hands. It's like you didn't win, but it feels almost as good as, like, it feels like getting a participation medal in itself. I feel like
if you're on the losing team,
if you're on the losing team, to me it feels the same. It's like you're kind of we lost, but we were at least competitive, and like the handshake at the end just feels like everyone is acknowledged that, it's like, unless it's a disgusting loss and they're like, we're just here because we have to be. But
I think it does like put it to rest a little bit. Like it's like an immediate like full acceptance of the loss.
Yeah, it's like you can move on.
You can't just go home and be mad about it. It's like, okay, first we gotta shake these guys' hands, admit, you guys were the better team tonight. Well done. But you put it to rest a little bit. But always, I mean, it's always such a bad look when you see those guys that won't come into the handshake line, and that happens pretty often.
Yeah, it actually does.
And it's always a decent thing when like you played a dicey match, like a lot of like maybe some dirty tackles from like the enemy team and some yelling back and forth, and then it all just gets set aside in that handshake. Except often, usually there's a few lads that opt out of it.
Yeah,
I don't think I usually will just step in the line, but I mean,
I'd have to, or else
you should feel bad about yourself, honestly. Like those guys that like
don't do it,
and everybody just sees them on the side and they're like, hey, what are you doing? You're not going to shake our hand?
Yeah, that's
like,
a little crazy.
It's a clear sore loser moment, and it's not a good look for like anybody. And like I feel like if you are that guy who's not willing to step into the handshake line, you shouldn't feel good about that. Like it's just like a childish thing, I feel like.
Yeah. Do you think, so I don't think you're the type of person who ever got like really mad at video games, but rage in video games seems like something that's pretty apparent today. Like, guys throw controllers on the ground, like they're streaming it and whatnot, and they're like breaking TVs. I wonder if there was like if you could exchange messages after like a game online, like, hey, good game, man, you fought hard.
Yeah.
If there would be less rage, or if it's because you don't see people like throw their like shoes on the ground in a soccer game, like in a fit, but like controllers, it's easy to launch controllers at a TV and stuff like that. I just wonder if like your opponent was like, good game, like a virtual lineup almost, where they're like, you fought hard, but maybe it's because it's online and you can't see your opponent. Could be 8 years old, could be 30. You don't know what you're getting. And they're probably chirping in like the pregame lobby and stuff that. Maybe because you can't see your opponent that it's easy to rage.
I think, it's definitely partly that. And I feel like partly that nobody's watching what you do after the game. Yeah. Like, let's say if the game ended and for whatever reason you couldn't see, with like they pulled the curtain across and you just don't see what your teammates are doing. I feel like people would behave like differently. It's just like, the other team's watching. Your team is looking, how do you handle the loss? Are you gonna go crazy and like lose your mind? And then maybe there's some fans on the side. They're like, what's this guy saying? Is he gonna go berserk just because he lost this game? But if it's just you playing your like Xbox by yourself and there's nobody there, it's like there's more likely that the controllers are gonna go flying.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've never personally been that invested to toss a controller, but like
me neither.
Yeah, I've also never been the type to yell at refs and stuff either. Just like
you actually you're just generally easygoing on the pitch, I find.
Yeah, I mean the ref the thing with me for the refs is like I know it's not really gonna do much yelling at the ref, so like if anything he'll be annoyed and then be maybe more likely to make some bad calls against me next time.
Yeah, and you don't really get any fouls that are like questionable. I find the fouls called on you are like clear as day to me. It's like not a lot of arguing to be done. It's like, took him down through the leg in between his, and you're like, that was a clean trip.
Yeah.
You don't get a lot of cards though.
No, that's the thing. I never got like a lot of yellows or reds. It's usually just a clean foul, just fair play, just like and honestly, like if you're playing a nice game, you should probably be getting a few fouls a game or like a foul, like because it's like, are you really in it if you're not really? Yeah. If you're not getting a couple fouls here.
Yeah, you have to tackle sometimes, and I feel like maybe you not barking at the refs helps you get a couple extra calls. Like you get a couple extra slide tackles. You get a greasy one where he's not quite on the breakaway, but you still trip him. Like you were a forward made to push and you got the trip, and the ref's like, well, he hasn't really barked at me yet, so I'll let this one slide. But if you were like screaming and just like trying to be mega competitive, mega sweaty, he's like, I'll call the yellow on this guy.
That could definitely be a factor. I do love like a little bit of back and forth though. Even like it's just not my way of doing things, but even if some teammates are like giving the ref like a piece of their mind or preferably actually like going a little back and forth with some other teammates. I've seen you go to a little verbal battle with some other enemy players, and it's always it's fun because I feel like you enjoy the mental warfare of some competition too, like whether it's soccer or just beer pong or whatever it is. It's like there's an aspect of mental warfare. You get in their head a little bit and their performance might start to suffer a bit, and I appreciate that aspect of competition for sure. Of like this isn't just like physically who can be more athletic, it's also like a mental game at the same time. And I feel like you definitely deeply understand that, and that's a good factor.
Yeah, I feel like definitely on the pitch, it's nice to you can throw out a couple chirps. It in moderation, it gets under people's skin, but hopefully throws them off their game a little bit. The
sarcastic comments, I gotta love those.
Oh yeah, it's
a nice shot, bud. When it's just like fucking.
Just goes way over. Like, not a bad shot, but it is nice because it almost shows it shows your teammates that you care a little bit too, and I feel like that helps. It helps the team rally, good morale. I mean, kind of bad morale, but good morale at the same time.
I think it's like if you're like really competitive and you want your team to win, there's like actual factors like that can lead to your team winning.
Oh yeah.
But maybe certain players have different roles, and I know that's just not. I'm just not.
You're not
gonna be the type of person to do that. Just not my personality.
Like a Datsuk type.
Yeah, that's a big compliment, but I'll take it.
Like Nicky'll grind in the corners, right? Shout out Nicky.
It's like if you're building a squad for like even like a video game, you want to pick players that have different attributes. You know what I mean? So it's like you need that player that's gonna like muddy the waters a little bit, like a Brad Marsh on the Bruins type of player.
Yeah.
Where like you hate to play against them, but you want him on your team.
100%.
And like if you're gonna pick like a perfect squad, you might not all have like the like Jonathan Taves type of players that are just like good, I don't know, coming back. Yeah, you're gonna have like a good mix. You like to see that, I think. Yeah, Nicky will definitely get in it, and I always love to see it every time.
Yeah, like he's willing to give you a red if it means it'll spark the boys. I mean,
and I honestly don't mind a red from Nicky as long as it's as long as it boosts the team, as long as it boosts the team's energy a little bit.
No, man, you really don't mind the red from Nicky.
Like maybe even a 2-game suspension. I honestly couldn't complain as long as the morale gets boosted for the next week or so.
No, like, I compare it to like Chell 16 where you get in a fight, you spam Y and then you get a Tilly on the other side. And after the fight you get the energy levels on your line.
Yeah,
that's kind of Nicky with the red cards. Like you see him lay the body, it's aggressive, drop shoulder.
Yeah.
And it's like it's the clear as day red.
Yeah.
But it just inspires, like he put his heart on the line for the team, fought hard, and like it gives me just enough juice to keep going, I feel like. Yeah,
that really is it. And some of those tackles are just brilliant. Just like a 2-hander push or whatever, things like that. Just
and he'll talk trash after.
Yeah, exactly.
It was clean.
Yeah. A couple of animal sounds maybe.
Yeah,
but
classic. Oh, man, yeah, elite player, honestly.
You gotta love it though, and I think what it really is like
leaves it on the pitch.
Yeah, like he'll do whatever it takes to take down the enemy team, and you love to see it.
And that kind of goes back to what you were saying. Like you need a guy, like you kind of need a well-balanced team, different attributes.
Mm-hmm.
There's goal scorers, there's playmakers, there's aggressors.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they're all competitors. It's just what do they bring to the team. Yeah, I guess when we were playing competitive soccer early on and like you had to go to tryouts and stuff like that,
mm-hmm.
I guess they're like the coaches are not just saying like, oh, these are all the best. It's like they're actually crafting a team with all of these little roles within the team in mind. Like there's a role for a grit grinder on a soccer team, you need it.
Yeah, 100%. And like you can almost like optimize your team to be good in certain ways. Like sometimes it's fun to craft a team with like just full grinders, and it's maybe just a matchup thing too. Like full grinders might be really good against a team of full like small speedy guys, but like I always enjoy that when there's like grinders on the team. It's just always fun to watch. And soccer, there's always like people get heated and some yelling matches, and it's always good to have like a guy like Nicky to, I don't know, stir the pot a bit and get that mental warfare going.
Very important. Definitely one of the best teammates to have. But like speaking on team identity, it's pretty apparent in football as well, I find.
Mm-hmm.
There's some teams that are like have a running offense where they just have a running back who punches it up the gut or something like that, and they don't throw the ball at all. And then on the contrary, there are teams who just exclusively throw the ball instead of relying on a running back. And it's kind of neat because like you build that team identity, and the coaches and the staff just create these lines to optimize like being a running team or being like a receiving team.
Right. And you always hear people say about like I want to force them to play into my game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Where like all of a sudden, and I know we've had games like this in futsal where we start getting a little like chippy, like lots of fouls, and it just changes the way the other team plays.
Yeah.
Now they're like extra cautious when it's there's the ball in the middle and two lads running at it at the same time.
Yeah.
They're a little bit like wary, and then next thing you know, you easily take the ball because they're just like, I remember what happened last time, like just like shoulder on shoulder or whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's weird how there's like different levels and kind of you kind of set the tone when you compete. It's like you're gonna be chippy right off the bat, and how are the other teams going to receive that? It's like, are they going to also go up a level and compete alongside you, or is it just going to be like, whoa, this is too much, you can have the ball at half,
Yeah, like I think the biggest competitors will have a high bar for what they want to compete with. And what I mean by that is like, I'll give an example. Hopefully it'll clear it up. Is like, I remember hearing Kobe Bryant talk about when he first got in the league and was matched up with Michael Jordan, and like a lot of other players would be intimidated by him, but in his mind, his bar for what is success in the competition was probably a little bit higher, and he's like, I'm not gonna let this guy beat me. I don't let anybody beat me. Doesn't matter who they are. I'm gonna try to win regardless. But I think some people can get like, you might get taken out of the competition mentally, because you're like, oh no, that's too much. I'm not gonna try to compete with that. That's a little bit over the top. I'll compete with like maybe that other guy who's like a little bit lower. But in some way, I feel like where you set your competitive standard is often where you're gonna end up going to a certain degree. Like, if you're like a garbage basketball player, like if I was like, I want to compete with Michael Jordan, like I'm only gonna get so far.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like where you set that line of who you're competing with probably dictates how far you're gonna get to some degree. Like if I'm like, oh no, I'm content just competing with the lower level guy. That's fine. I'll try to beat him and do whatever it takes to beat him. Then that's might be where you end up at.
Yeah, it's like you get called to defend someone like that, like Kobe defending Michael. Yeah. I feel like the type of competitor he was, you're taking that matchup all the time because you just want to prove to you want to prove it to yourself, but also to like the people around you that, hey, I'm capable of doing this. Right. And I feel like a guy like that would never shy away from that competition. But at the same time, there's definitely people who are like, this guy's going to drop 40 on me. Why would I want to defend that? And that's just two different levels of competition. Like the guys who are like win or lose, like Kobe defends Michael's still probably going to get a lot of buckets, right? Mm-hmm. Just the nature of the beast. Yeah. But like there's a big thing, like a big learning experience out of that for the person defending him. And I feel like that can only make you better. Like you just like, that's a pretty good lesson to learn. I feel like you take a hard assignment and you learn from it. It's like that only helped his career probably. Yeah,
and a lot of people would want to avoid that because, like, there's a big fear of losing, right? Yeah. Like, do you think for you a lot of your competitive drive is because you want to win, or is it because you don't want to lose? Because that's a big thing. Like, a lot of the time, the reason you're trying so hard in a sport or because you're trying hard to get a good grade or whatever type of competition it is because you don't want to lose. It's the fear of losing rather than the excitement of winning. And I think, what do you think is a bigger motivator for you?
For me, it's probably winning. Like, the reason why I compete is to win. Yeah. Because I welcome losing as an opportunity to learn something. Yeah. Like if I win, I don't really consider what I could do better because I think about winning as like, oh, like I did what I needed to do to win. Yeah. But when I lose, I think, well, like what could I have done better, or why didn't I win, or what did the other person or team do that was that got the job done over me. Right. And so for me, it's competing to win, and inevitably you're not going to win every time, but you learn from the losses. I find it tough to learn from the wins. Like even in professional sports, they watch a lot of tape and a lot of film after games and stuff like that. And there's a lot of things you can dissect in the film for like practice purposes and stuff like that. Yeah. But in some moments I find, well, we did enough to win, so what more can you really ask for? It's like you got the win. Yeah. But I find I'd be more interested in watching the film if I lost, because it's like, hey, you could have improved here, or they did this, you know?
Right. Would you ever have any games where like you would actually come out with the win, but there were like specific instances in the game where you did poorly, and like that will actually like annoy you a little bit after the game? Because I would have that sometimes where like you actually win, but there was like a time where you just could like miss the net bad, or like there was just a bad play, and you're like, that we won, but I'm actually gonna still walk away from this thinking I got to do better because I hated that moment where I missed, or I hated that moment where the guy stole the ball from me, and I don't want that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely happens in the moment. You hit the crossbar, you're like, if I just put the ball 2 inches lower, it could have gone in, and that's pretty frustrating. But no, I don't really carry too much out of the game like after the handshake, unless like my dad was watching the game or something, then we would talk about it. But like most of the time, leave it on the field.
Yeah.
You know, unless we're talking about stats after the game, and then it's like, oh, I could that if that goal goes in, the stats look better, you know. Right. So it's probably a mixed bag, I feel like. But
like, and with the stats thing, that makes me think of how a lot of areas of society are kind of built around competition and comparing. Like, you will have all these statistics, and like on a weekly basis you might check like the what are the stats for the league, or like what grade everybody had, and there's like, in that sense you can get in like a deep you could really start to be like comparing just all the time.
Yeah.
Because it is literally plastered on websites or plastered on boards of where you are and then where somebody else is, and then there's like a little number rank beside both of you.
Oh yeah, and that's super apparent with like recruiting and stuff on LinkedIn and the job force and stuff like that, where you know, you take two finance grads looking at this one job. The employer is going to have to make a decision. It's ultimately like, who's better, and they're just gonna you know, you have the same degree, but then this person has a little more juice here, and then they go with that person. So I feel like you're always working on yourself, but it's tough to it's just important to continue working on yourself and like just making sure that your stock is the highest it can be, because if you just compare it to everyone else's stock, it's probably going to be pretty disappointing a lot, because you don't know everyone's upbringing, you know. It's like this person's like LinkedIn, for instance, might be just incredible, but maybe they don't do too much aside from practice that. Or in your instance with practicing Muay Thai, like, you might not be killing a sparring session, but you look at the person you're sparring against and you're only doing it once a week. They're doing it 3 times a week. So it's like, you kind of like, there's reasons why everyone's ahead of one another in certain areas. Like, you might not be as good and you might not be as good in that field, but then you get on like a kayak and you're nice.
Exactly.
So it's just constantly working on being like yourself and competing with yourself, I feel like, is probably just the best way to work.
Yeah, that's huge, because I think you are going to just set yourself up for like deep disappointment if you're always like comparing against everybody else. Because in so many aspects you aren't going to be the best. And what do you think about people who, because like a lot of people that don't like competition, they don't like it because they haven't had a lot of success in competition. Like, people that really love competition, often they're doing well in the competition. So like, if you continue to win and you do other competitions, you're like, the competition's good. We it makes us try harder, and there's I like competition. There's good parts about it. But if you're somebody who, for most of your life, every time you do competitions, you don't end up winning, or that you haven't had a significant share of successes, you might start to look down on competition. What do you think for those people?
Yeah, well, I feel like there's probably some people who don't win a lot,
Yeah.
just in general.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if it's because they don't have the ability to win a lot. It's maybe just because they haven't found that thing that they're
Right.
into competing hard for.
Right.
It probably gets to a point where you compete in a certain space. If we were competing for a really long time and just not winning, after a while, I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but after a while, I'd feel like, well, this probably isn't for me. And then I'll just look for something else to be competitive in.
Right.
And because there's got to be one thing that you're good at.
Yeah,
at
one
least,
thing,
you know?
or a certain group too. Because
Yeah.
let's say like me and you all of a sudden became like really close with Steph Curry and like a bunch of NBA players. We're like extremely talented athletes, and now we're always like doing things with them. Yeah, we're always doing things with them. Like in some ways, it's not necessarily we're like complete losers, but like at that point we would just be with the absolute elite, and like what can you expect in that sense? Because like I've heard the saying too of like, if you want to be not exactly like this, but like if you want to be happy, you'll be like the most advanced or like smartest person in the room. But if you want to develop the most, you're not going to be that person that's the smartest or most advanced in whatever area it is.
Yeah, like you're not playing, like you have to play against better people to become better yourself, I feel like. And I definitely don't shy away from playing against people who are better at certain things, because it is a good learning opportunity. Like we were talking about hockey earlier. I know nothing about I watch a lot of hockey, but I don't know anything about playing it.
Yeah.
And playing against people who actually know the sport, just watching how people get positioning on the ice or move the puck. I can lead a breakout pretty well, but I don't know how to like grind in the corners, right? So it's just nice to see how other people do it, you know? I find playing against those people to be very enlightening. But if we were friends with like Steph Curry and the boys, there'd probably like a degree of acceptance that I have with coming in last every time. It's like not something I'd be proud of, but I'd be like, yeah, well, it's expected. Like these guys play basketball for a living, and probably good at other sports too. And you're like, oh, I'm okay with losing to these guys.
Yeah, and you hope they're like reasonable with it too, like not just trying to like
take you down.
Yeah, like mental warfare with you, just chirping you as you're like continuing to lose every game.
Is that overly competitive or just like a bad,
just like a bad human,
just a bad apple?
Yeah. Just a bad apple. Yeah, that's just not nice. I mean, some people, they take the competition overboard where it's like it becomes like a domination thing.
Yeah.
Where they're like,
I own you.
Yeah, I just want to destroy. Which you'll see that with some pro athletes for sure.
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
That's the thing. That's something in society that's never really going to go away. Like as much as people maybe try to steer away from competition and have like no more grading systems, I've heard some schools are opting to do that.
Really?
Yeah. Trying to do that stuff might be going against what the reality of like human nature is.
Like just naturally competing against one another.
Yeah, people have been competing for thousands and thousands of years. So the goal of a lot of games is to win. So if you tell people, no, it doesn't. Your goal is not to win. You're just here to play. It's like, really though? Because I thought we were trying to win these games.
Yeah, it's like, well, what's life without a little competition? You know, it's like if we're not trying to do anything, what's the point of anything? You know.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm just gonna be a warm body on the pitch there. Yeah. You just try and kick the ball and you're like, oh, didn't kick it that time. It's like, what are we doing, you know? But it's just, if you're having fun competing, then compete. And if you're not having fun, then just like do something else that's fun. I feel like competition in general, it's like I don't do it because I'm obsessed with winning. It's just like I like testing myself and seeing like if I can compete at a high level. And I think it's fun to just like test your own limits, but
something to think about for sure, because it can mess with your head if you take it the wrong way, and like you're trying to be dominant or not able to lose.
Yeah, I feel like the moral of the podcast really is it's just like competition's just something to think about, right? It's a nice, like, it's just something you always got to consider. It's just a nice thing to think about. You don't need it, you don't have to have it, but it's just a nice thing to think about sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll leave it there. Just think about it.
Just think about it,
there
guys.
we go. Thanks for listening.
Cheers, guys.